More moves are coming for the New York Rangers. As we know, Chris Drury wants to upgrade at the center position. He has found the perfect player to do so. We're going to break that down, as well as how the Rangers are still heavily in trade talks and will make multiple moves before tomorrow's 3 p.m. Eastern trade deadline. We're going to break it all down and more in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the New York Rangers, from trade rumors to trade reports to practice updates and reports to post-game reactions, all that fun stuff, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, we know, obviously, following the Riley Smith trade, which was a pretty good move for the New York Rangers, that they're not done yet. And rumors and reports are flying around on Twitter, on X. Articles are flying around everywhere that the Rangers are not done yet, and Chris Drury still wants to make a couple more moves. And one of them is upgrading at the center position. He has not been shy, and we've heard from multiple insiders that he does want to upgrade at either the second line or third line center position. And he has found the perfect player to do that, because now rumors, this is from Rono and Andy, and obviously a couple other insiders are reporting that the New York Rangers are interested in Pavel Zacha from the Boston Bruins. Center Pavel Zacha, and Zacha would be an improvement to the Rangers' forward depth. Zacha can play both left wing or center. I would imagine if they were going to acquire this player, that it would be to play center. So if you take a look at his advanced analytics, a pretty good two-way player. Obviously has some offensive upside. His contract, we'll get into that in a second, but again, pretty good offensive upside. He had a phenomenal season a couple seasons ago. Obviously has tailed off since then. That might have been, his peak, might have been the best season of his career. But we know that that is there, especially when he's playing with high-end players. And if you take a look at his stats, specifically this year, his 38 points in 63 games on a Bruins team that has been awful. One of the worst goal differentials in the league as well. And he is a 0 for plus minus. He is even, which is pretty impressive. He plays a ton of minutes for the Bruins, upwards of almost 20 minutes a night. Again, just like the Rangers, loves to give the puck away, not so much take it away, but that's all good because of what he can do with the puck, which is put it on, he can facilitate plays. He's a good playmaker, so I think it could be an interesting option for the New York Rangers. He's only 27. He's going to be 28 this year. He's 6'3". He's a big presence up the middle. I think it could be an interesting option. And even, for the Bruins, when Patrice Bergeron retired and David Krejci, he took up the mantle. He went right up the middle there, first line, second line minutes, and he was playing great for them. So we know that he can do this, especially at the second line center position. So I think it's a very interesting option for Chris Drury and co to take a look at, and the fact that they are linked to him now. And as you can take a look here from Kyle Hall, he goes on to say this might be out there already, but apparently the Rangers are interested in Boston Bruins forward Pavel Zacha. Would fit the Drury narrative of him looking for players with term. And that's the other thing I wanted to get into. Not only is he a pretty good fit on this team, we'll get more into how he would fit specifically on this team, but his contract is pretty nice, and we'll get into some fan reaction as well. He makes $4.75 million for the next 2 years, so not just the rest of this year, but the next year and the year after that. So very cost controlled. He's signed till he's 30 years of age. This is a perfect contract if you bring him in. This says he's 6'4", by the way. He's a pretty big guy right up the middle there. If you bring him in to play center, this is a brilliant contract, especially if he's playing second line center and he can produce at the clip that he was before. So I think that you could actually take a risk here. The Bruins are wanting to sell. There's rumors of them wanting to trade Marchand as well, which is pretty crazy. So, I think that you would absolutely take a chance on a guy like this. And we can take a look at some fan reaction. This is from the Boston Bruins side of things as well. Feels almost like a certainty that Morgan Geekie, Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, and Brandon Carlo would all get first-round picks. Boston needs to be open to an aggressive fire sale given this market. The market has been crazy so far this trade deadline, and it sounds like they want first-round picks for these guys. Now, if you're the New York Rangers, trading a first-round pick, especially at this year's deadline, where you're not necessarily wanting to make a push and you're not buying per se, right? Like, they're selective buyers, the Rangers are this year. I'm not sure that makes a ton of sense, but, you give a first-round pick for a second-line center. it's, you know, not the worst deal in the world. Obviously, you would rather not to do that. You would rather like a lower pick, maybe a B prospect, something like that. But obviously, the Bruins know the market. They're going to want to get something out of him. And he has terms, so it's not like you can wait till free agency to sign him. But I think it could be a really good fit on this Rangers team. That's from the Bruins side of things. If you take a look at some of the Rangers fans, NYR Louis on Twitter, Pavel Zacha is not a bad player. Depending on the return, I'm not against trading for him. Contract isn't bad either. The contract, I think, is actually really, really good for a player who can play that high up in the lineup and has, right? It's not just, you know, predicting anything. Like, he has done that for the Bruins in the past. So, and I mean actively, but they haven't been good this year. But I think it could be an interesting fit. And of course, from NYR Ollie, I like Pavel Zacha. I think he would fit in the third line with Parssinen and Othman or Berard as well. I'm not too sure he would go on the third line, though. I think they have other plans for that third line, which include Parssinen possibly playing the center position long term. We don't know exactly what they're thinking yet, and there's still a lot of rejigging of the lineup going on. But speaking of the lineup, if you take a look at this lineup right now, obviously projected is the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line as your first line. Then Miller is, I mean, technically your first line center, I think, at this point with Cooley and Zibanejad. Zibanejad is no longer a center. He should be stapled to the wing at this point. And there was, you know, reports earlier this week that Chris Drury wants to completely reconfigure the Rangers center position. So maybe he would come in and be a third line center with Trocheck there. Maybe you even look at moving Trocheck to the wing. We don't know what the future of Zibanejad is, right, with this team past this year. So it could get very interesting. If you move Zacha in, he clearly, to me, goes third line center this year, right? But looking towards the future, you don't know. Maybe, again, Trocheck moves to the wing or something. Maybe you rejig the lineup a little bit. He can also play left wing, where maybe on the third line, the second line, you know, he can come in and play the wing this year, but long term you're looking at him as a center. So he's a very dynamic player, very versatile option, I think, for the Rangers in this way that they should definitely take a look at, because if you look at this roster, it looks pretty incomplete, and you know, there's not too many certainties going into next year either. And not that it looks incomplete. I'm excited to see what Othman, Berard, and Cooley can do the rest of this year, like some of the young guys. Love Matt Rempe standing up to Tom Wilson, stuff like that, right? I think Sam Carrick's looked great this year. Parssinen, I want to see more of him. He's a big body. I want to see more of him on the third line, really taking control of that third line center spot. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're thinking long term, but I think for the short term, maybe he comes in, maybe he plays the wing, or maybe they just, you know, throw him on center right away and they rejig the lineup a little bit more, because, you know, rejigging the lineup and moving Zibanejad to the wing has really revitalized his season. So could be an interesting option for the Rangers, but I want to hear what you have to say in the comments. What do you think about possibly trading for Pavel Zacha from the Boston Bruins? It sounds like they are definitely interested, and I mean, it matches up with the reports from earlier this week that Chris Drury wants to add at the center position, wants to completely reconfigure the center position. So it could be Pavel Zacha from the Boston Bruins. But would you do a first round pick? I am curious to see what you have to say in the comments about that. I'm not too sure, but at the same time, if you can add a second line center who has term for a first round pick, and your team is still that technically in a window where they could make the playoffs this year, and then looking towards next year, you have JT Miller for a full year, could be an interesting proposition there. But let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.